Rob, senior, major, I'm a political science major and a film production minor. And in the interesting facts, I'm a rock climbing instructor at the recreational center. Okay, I've actually had a lot of experience in organizations and the USG, etc. In the last year, I was actually the organization liaison committee chair in USG, which involved going to organizations, contacting organizations and hearing any organizational issues, concerns, etc. when they were brought to USG. In addition to that, I have been a member of several other organizations. I'm a member of Sigma Phi Epsilon. I am the president of the Recreational Athletic Student Union. I've been a member of various other organizations. I was on the executive board of Hall Council for a couple of years. I have been in LSU in lots of different organizations, basically. As kind of represented by our motto, Emmelhainz for USG, community learning in our student voice. How it breaks down is community. There's been a lot of animosity in recent years between the student body, and by the student body I mean like many students, especially students who live off campus, and like the residents of the city of Bowling Green. And some of the results of this kind of animosity are that things like they are enforcing the zoning laws, restricting students to 3 unrelated per house, which means students get evicted, etc. They recently tried to, with Section O of the Housing Master Plan, they recently tried to put in something in place that could actually charge the students, you know, like rental and licensing fees. That actually charge the landlords who put the cost on the students. And so that's like kind of the consequences of this like animosity that occurs between the two communities. And so what I think is really important is that we try and bridge that gap, trying to like fix that animosity. And I think two things, and that's what the heart of it is, to respect BG. Students do not treat this town like they treat their hometown. You don't throw your beer cans on your parents' lawn. It just wouldn't happen. And at the same time, residents look at students and say, they're just here for 4 years. They're not really members of Bowling Green. Really, it is a college town, however, so both sides need to kind of get in. And, you know, practical goals, how about just to throw something out, how about we set up work with the cities and with the neighborhood associations to set up like community service projects that like Greek organizations and other organizations can actually use in order for philanthropy goals, etc. So maybe like community service projects. And then really briefly on the other two, because I know that one went kind of long. Learning. The heart of it is learning for the future. Academics, USG should be focusing on academics. That's the main reason why we are here at Bowling Green State University. We're here to learn, and one of the things is that BG is kind of behind the times in terms of classroom facilities, in terms of the learning environment, and not being as nice as it could be, as nice as many of our sister schools. If you look around this classroom right now, it's kind of a little bit janky, I believe is the phrase I'd use. And so basically it's just all about like, I know we can't build new buildings, we don't have the money for that, but let's work with the university to find some new solutions, to find some new chairs, not that interesting chair, it's falling apart. Let's kind of improve our classrooms, and then let's also work towards more technology. Let's have professors use Blackboard. I know they won't be incredibly happy with me saying this, but these facilities these technologies, resources are there for the students to learn better, so let's use them. And then finally, our student voice, that's obviously kind of the most important in general, that's what USG does. USG allows the students to have their voice. And so kind of when working on that, I would say the most important thing is that there's two parts of that. Number one, transparency. We've got to work to make sure that what the administration is doing is transparent, is visible to the students. And then number two is, that what USG is doing with administration is also visible to the students. And then in general, the student input is actually heard in USG. So really what that means is make USG and the administration more visible. And practical point, how about I guarantee that if we're elected, there will be 2 banners every week, changed every week. This is what USG is working on, and this is where our meetings are. Please come and give your input. Like, have 2 banners, like those outdoor banners, very visible. You know, stop having USG only show up during election time. What do I feel is USG's role? I believe that USG's role is to serve as the liaison between the students and the administration of the university. And specifically in that role, USG should represent the students' interests, students' concerns, issues to the administration, and ensure that administration is transparent on issues to the students so that students really have a voice, and not only a voice, but also actually input into decisions the university makes before they're made, as opposed to giving input and then having decisions made that have nothing to do with input. Well, personally, reaching out to the student body on important issues such as, for instance, on the Stroh Center recently. I, as an off-campus senator, is technically my role in addition to a committee chair within USG. I do a couple of things. As a committee chair and as a senator in the organization liaison committee, I go out to organizations, speak to organizations, asking for issues and concerns, and we have spoken to at least a third of the organizations on campus this year. So 300 plus organizations, it's impossible to ever get to all of them, you know, schedule-wise. But then also, as a senator, in addition to speaking to organizations on major issues like the Stroh Center, as I said before, I personally spoke to about 160 people, 162 I think, which I kind of figure, like, when you kind of think about it, like, any politician anywhere is never going to speak to that much of their constituency. As an off-campus senator, I represent probably 600 to 800 students, so if I'm speaking to 150, that's, you know, what is that, 20 to 25%. So I basically, and what I spoke to the students is I said, here's the issue, here's what I know about the issue, here's what, as kind of as a trustee of the students electing to me to be able to make, believing that I am able to make good decisions for the students with their input, you know, so technically I'm a political, not a trustee. With the information I know of the Stroh Center, giving this to the students, talking to students, about 55% of the students I spoke to said vote yes on the Stroh Center. And so that's a perfect example of how I actually go out to students and get their opinions. And then because of them saying, because I was speaking to my constituency and then telling me vote yes, I went ahead and voted yes. So that's an example of kind of how I have been trying to actually, on issues, I try to make sure that student voice is heard.